Another Colorado mother has done the unthinkable, but this time she managed to flee all the way to the UK. We're going to talk about it in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Sofa's back there. Mr. Roscoe's on it. My name's Paul, and I'm sitting in front of it. Now, today we're going to be talking about a case. This is very fresh. It is another case out of Colorado. Honestly, it is giving Letitia Stalk vibes. It's very tragic. It involves a mother and her children. So what we're going to do today is just talk about what we know because it's very fresh. It's very new. So not a lot has come out about it, but we will be following it. Now, what I'm going to do is usually I do like a little 60-second overview of the cases, but literally that's essentially what this whole video is about. So before we do jump into it, if you want to follow myself, Mr. Roscoe, well, the both of us, outside of here, we're mostly active on Insta, on Gram, on the Instagrams. It's on the screen right here, and it's down in the description below, so give us a follow over there, see what's going on. And let's go ahead and jump into the details of today's case. So again, today's case is very tragic. It involves, this time, actually a mother. Oftentimes we hear this about the father, but this time it is a mother. The children, her children, are at the center of it. They are the victims. However, luckily, by the grace of God, one of them survived. But this is during a very contentious, very tricky custody battle. And we'll get into the details of that and what her ex-husband has to say about that a little bit later on in the video. So on December 19th, Kimberlee Singler placed a phone call to 911 about a burglary at her home. So as you can imagine, the cops are summoned to the home. They get there, but what they find absolutely shocks them. Kimberlee is there with her 3 kids, but the kids aren't all right. In fact, nothing's all right. They'll find her 9-year-old boy and 7-year-old girl deceased at the scene, and Singler and her 11-year-old daughter were also injured. Now, like I said, the 11-year-old has managed to come through, thank God. But something doesn't sit right with the detectives about this case. There's something that they just can't put their fingers on. So they start looking into it. Now, they would say that after responding to the scene on the 19th, that they kept tabs on Singler, but no officer was actually assigned to monitor her like every moves. So by December 26th, this is when they realize like things aren't right. We've got enough evidence here. They get a warrant for her arrest on M charges in relation to her 2 children. It's issued, but she is long gone by then. In fact, she made it all the way to the UK. Now let's talk about that for a moment, and then we'll get into some of the statements, like I said, from her ex-husband, as well as allegations she tried to make against him. So like I said, Kimberlee was arrested over in the United Kingdom, and I'm actually going to quote an article from the BBC now to talk about that and what they had to say about it. So the UK's National Crime Agency, NCA, said she had been arrested in Kensington area without incident and appeared at the Westminster Magistrates Court on Monday for an extradition hearing. She was remanded in custody and will appear in court on January 29th. Okay, so let's go ahead now and talk a little bit about the ex-husband, his statements, and things of that nature. So allegedly, the divorce was applied for in 2018, finally went through in 2020, but it was literally a nightmare custody situation all in between and after. Now I'm going to quote an article and his attorney and just read directly from it, and then we'll talk about it. So Kevin Wentz, Singler's ex-husband, released this statement through his attorney following the UK arrest. Here it goes. Earlier this afternoon, Colorado Springs police notified Kevin Wentz that Kimberlee Singler had been apprehended in the United Kingdom. He was relieved that the search has ended. Mr. Wentz is thankful to all law enforcement here in the United States and the United Kingdom that were involved in the homicide investigation and Kimberlee's subsequent arrest. It is his hope that Kimberlee will be extradited to Colorado soon. Kevin Wentz continues to hope for justice for his children. At an LA, he prays for peace and healing for his surviving daughter. We ask that the community and press give the Wentz family the privacy they need to mourn and heal. Jennifer Darby, attorney for Kevin Wentz. So obviously when we see situations like this, it's absolutely heartbreaking, to see, number one, the loss of life, especially when it's children, and then to see what this does to the rest of the family, to the parent who obviously didn't want this to happen, right? So let's talk about some of those dramatics going on between the couple that allegedly seem to be coming from Kimberlee in relation to the custody battle. So Singler had been fighting for full custody and reportedly wanted to take the kids out of state. She was wanting to go to like Oregon or Florida Florida, and a judge had approved a custody plan for Wentz to visit the children at certain dates and time, but he wasn't going to retain full custody. But here's the thing, this did not go well at all, okay? There was a lot of drama with it. There was a lot of clashes and arguments during the visitations and like the pickups and stuff like that. So by September 18th, 2023, when Wentz showed up to pick his kids up in accordance with the agreement, Kimberlee called the cops on him and said he pulled a knife on her and was calling her names. So the cops show up, they interview everybody, whatnot. They're not seeing any kind of evidence. He's denying this happened, and they're not seeing anything that causes them to make an arrest or anything like that at that time. So now fast forward to December 16th, 2023. So it's like a situation, it's mandatory that she drops her kid off to the ex, but guess what? That doesn't happen. So the next day, Kevin, Mr. Wentz, and his attorney go to the court, and they're like, look, she's in direct violation of this agreement like this. I want to get full custody. We need an emergency situation here. So a police sergeant even calls her on the 16th and is like, what's up? And she's like, look, I'm nowhere near the police station to drop them off. In fact, she only notified Mr. Wentz by email that she was in Breckenridge, Colorado with all three of the children. So at that point, remember, it's December 16th. Their next little custody hearing or whatever is January 18th of this year, 2024. And the judge is like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say that he needs to have full custody of the kids until then, and he grants that to him. And she's ordered to bring the children to Larimer County and drop them off on December 20th, just a few days later after that judgment was made. So now, one thing when I was going through this that I was questioning and trying to obviously, be like, what is the reasoning here? You know what I'm saying? Like, I always try and do that with these cases to figure out, even though there's never a good reason for something like this, right? So what I want to do now is to go back, because one question I had was like, well, was something going on with the dad that in her demented world, she was like, I'm trying to keep the kids from him for blank, so this is the only way she saw fit to do, right? So let's go back and look at some allegations that she tried to make against him. Now, before we do jump into the article, just so you know, I am puppy sitting, and as you can see, we have a little puppy here who has been outside the door barking, so I'm holding her so we can get to the video. This is little Miss Coco. She is Roscoe's little partner in crime, if you will. So let's get back to that. Now I'm going to refer to this article from the Daily Beast, and this is just another statement in regard to what Mr. Wentz's lawyer said and whatnot, in regard to allegations and whatnot. I'm going to read directly from it, quote it. So it says, in an earlier statement to KRDO, his lawyer said Singler had made egregious allegations of child abuse and domestic violence against her client. Kevin Wentz has never committed an act of domestic violence or abuse against his ex-wife or his children. The reported allegations that Ms. Singler made during the custody case were each made to coincide with Kevin's parenting time, the lawyer said. The Larimer County clerk heard testimony related to each of these allegations. It did not find them credible. The court further found that Kevin was not a threat to the children. A court order for Singler to hand the children over to Wentz was issued the day before the children were killed. The Singler family has also released a statement before Kimberlee's arrest, saying they were cooperating with police efforts to find her. Let's just talk about a few opinions and thoughts on that now. As always, I like to say, if you haven't watched me before, if you do, as my little speech, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not that fancy credentialed stuff, okay? Just a guy with a sofa and this time a couple of dogs. So these are just my opinions. I beg you to do your own research, come to your conclusions, because that's what I'm doing here. I'm just presenting information that I find and then offering some thoughts and opinions on it. So that being said, first of all, a lot of this information is, number one, it's very brand new, right? I mean, so they're being very hush-hush about some of this stuff. We're not going to find out things until we see police conferences. She goes back to court and that stuff and gets back to the United States. The UK is being very tight-lipped on this. Things of this nature are very different over there than they are here. So several questions come up for me, okay? Now, I understand that they were like, look, this event happened on the, 16th or the 20s, December 20-something. The incident where she took the lives of the children, she was supposed to give them over a couple of days before, the day before. Now, here's the thing with that. When they were like, okay, we went to the burglary call, we find her two children deceased, one's in really bad condition, she's been injured, but she was just kind of left to go. So I guess whatever went down, whatever story she sold them was believable enough in the moment. But then obviously very quickly they were like, So my question is, how did she gather enough stuff up to get all the way to the United Kingdom, right? And now from what I understand, they're like, she wasn't really trying to hide that hard in the United Kingdom. The second question here is, what a bizarre place to go to run, right? Like, look at the Adelson family, Charlie and all them, the Adelsons, that case we just went over. I mean, they're going to a country where there's no treaty with America. So you would think if you're going to go to all those issues, you would go somewhere that you might be a little bit better protected. Now, again, I'm not complaining, right? She's being brought to justice. This needs to happen. This is horrible. Now, the other part where the evidence so far is showing, and again, we don't have all the evidence yet. This is, still speculation. This is brand new. Now, the dynamic of the part with the allegations of abuse and whatnot, and the judge saying, you know what, we don't really see any evidence or anything of that nature where the children need to be removed from the father. We're just not seeing anything substantial here. I find that very interesting, especially with it being done of the children are to be handed over the day before this takes place. Because what it feels like to me is a scenario of, if I can't have them, no one will, kind of a thing, right? Again, we so often see this with the male being the perpetrator in the case. Now, I'm not trying to say that women aren't capable of it either, right? But it's just, usually it's the other way around. So when we see it with being the mother, it's like, whoa. Now what this also reminds me of, and honestly, even kind of her look, is Letitia Stout. And, with the same, characteristics, but also in the kind of same, location, same state, that area, is probably what makes it kind of tragically familiar. But again, we haven't gotten into her mind yet. We haven't gotten motive, so we can only speculate as to what it would be. But this whole dynamic where she was causing these issues, and again, allegedly causing issues based around his visitation times, this, that, and the other, it just leads me to form that opinion that this was if I can't have them, no one will. Now, also, major importance in this is the fact, well, first of all, and a blessing, that the daughter lived, right? So one of the children has survived, so that's a miracle. Now, after that, it's going to be, what information does she have to say? What is she going to say happened? Because she will hold the key. And also very similar to if you followed the mushroom case in Australia, where one of the victims lived and was able to come and say, this is what went down at the scene. Because oftentimes we see the perpetrator isn't planning on anybody living. And when one person does and can just literally be like, this is what came out of their mouth, it ties all the pieces together. And hopefully that will take place in this to bring justice to the younger children, the brother, the sister, the son, the daughter, who are no longer with us. So that's it. We're going to keep our eye on it. If you're still watching, I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for your patience with today's little visitor. But that's it. Mr. Roscoe's hanging out back there. He does ask that you drop some sofas in the comment section. Until Roscoe, myself, and I guess Coco this time, all gallivant down to the comment section. We'll see y'all soon.